Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Hungry Mexican. Today's episode has to do with working behind the scenes in the news industry. So if you're looking to get into the news industry, if you're looking to get a job behind the scenes, or interested in knowing how a newscast is put together, I think you're going to really like this episode. And even if you're not, I think this episode is very interesting. I sat down with my friend Allison Weeks, who is a news producer in Santa Barbara at the KEYT station. That's the ABC affiliate there. And at the same time, her dad has been in the news business as a news producer as well for a very long time up in the Bay Area. So she has a very unique perspective on that aspect. So without further ado, DJ, roll that music. Wait until Claire she can come in and go as she usually jumps in whenever.
She's the unexpected guest.
Yeah,
well, the expected unexpected guest.
Exactly. So now is this your first time in Oxnard?
No, I've been to Oxnard before. Like I went to Lazy Dog one time, but other than that,
here at the collection area.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Other than that, I haven't been to Oxnard. And I've been to the Ventura Volkswagen that's around the corner. So
wow.
It's not too far away.
Wow. Well, was it your first time eating pho?
It was my first time eating pho today.
So what'd you think?
I thought it was really good.
And what did you get again?
The tofu vegetable.
Yeah,
one?
Yeah. So that was good. Well, what'd you think about the little side when they came in with the little dish and the fresh vegetables and herbs? Like, what did you think that was?
I thought it was a salad because, when you go to like Italian restaurants, a lot of times they'll serve you the salad first and then the main course. So that's kind of what I was thinking when we walked in. And then you and Claire told me, no, you put it in the pho. So that was a learning experience today.
Oh man, but I'm glad you liked it though. That was the important thing.
Yeah, it was really good. I would definitely go there if I was sick and have some pho, like you did that one time 3 times.
Yeah, no, there was a time when so Claire was sick and I started feeling the little tickle in my throat, and so I went to get pho 3 days in a row, and I think 2 of those days it was pretty warm weather, and so I was kind of sweating a little bit, but I mean I gotta say, like, after that I did not get sick. The little tickle went away and everything was okay. So yeah, it has magical healing powers, I think, and now I'm just kind of obsessed over it. And
I can see why. Yeah.
And today's the perfect weather for it because it's kind of cloudy,
overcast, cold weather.
Exactly. Yeah. So warms the belly up. But we'll have a good dinner later tonight too. The good thing about the collection is there's so many shops, the restaurants to pick from.
Yeah, there's so much to choose from. So that's a good thing.
Exactly. But you're from the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Bay Area, and then I moved away for college. I moved to Chico, and I lived there for 4 years. And then I ended up moving back to the Bay Area after I finished college because I ended up getting a job in the Bay Area again and worked for like 3 years there. And then I moved to Santa Barbara.
Wow. Well, I imagine there's a lot of restaurants up there that you probably grew up, eating in, and you probably grew up having this culinary experience that I'd say maybe people that are not from big cities usually get. I mean, was that the
I
case
would
with
say
you?
so. Yeah, I would say so because I lived like 10 minutes away from San Francisco. And we had Chinatown, we had Japantown, we had North Beach. So we had like all these different kinds of foods to choose from. And that's like one of the nice things about the Bay Area is just so diverse and you can learn from so many different kinds of people as well.
Hmm. Tell me about like your most memorable experience in the Bay Area growing up.
My most memorable experience. That's a tough one because I feel like there's a lot.
What's one that kind of sticks out? Among the many, I'm sure, good ones that you had. What's one that you've always think that you kind of miss, if you will? Like, now that you're not in the Bay Area, you're working down in the Southern California area. What is it about the Bay Area that you do miss?
I miss going to San Francisco all the time. I will say that because I lived, like I said, 10 minutes away from San Francisco. And there's just something unique about it. Like just like walking through there, and there's so much history. And like I said, like all these different areas that you can go to. And you can feel like you're in a different world where I feel like where I live now in Santa Barbara, like pretty much everything's like the same. It's like all Spanish style buildings and things like that. And it's not as diverse as the Bay Area.
Yeah, that's very true. Santa Barbara has a certain atmosphere, certain type of style, if you will. But now you're working in news. So
Yes.
tell me how you got into the news industry.
Okay, so the funny thing is, I always thought I was going to be a nurse or a doctor. Yeah, and so that's like completely different from being in the news business. But I so my freshman year in college, I joined the school newspaper, which was called the Orion. And I ended up joining it just like to do something and to meet more people. And I ended up being like really involved in it and more interested in like what was going on in the news compared to like what was going on in like my anatomy class, which I wasn't doing too well in. um, and then I think it took me like maybe 6 months or something to realize that like, this probably isn't for me because like I failed like an EMT class and I wasn't doing well in organic chemistry. And then I realized, sciences don't really come as natural to me as like writing and putting together information. So that's when I decided to like change my major to journalism, and the rest is history, as they would say.
Did your college have a journalism program?
They didn't have a broadcasting department, but they had a journalism program. They had just like more of a like print online journalism program.
And while it was easy to maybe, mentally change from one, I guess, career path or one set of studies to doing journalism, how difficult was it to get the university to kind of, deal with the now the new classes and kind of drop the old major? And because in my case, I was taking film studies as a major, but then I realized that wasn't really for me, at least not that particular major at UCSB, where I went. And I think I had to get certain signatures for the classes or that major to be dropped. So it was like this whole process you had to go. How was the process of changing, I guess majors or area of studies at your college?
It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I had to do the same thing. I had to have all these different people sign off on me changing my major. But I think the thing that helped me, which helps me with producing a lot, is like during that whole winter break, I knew like, okay, I know what classes I'm going to take this semester. that kind of thing in the next one and all that stuff. So I did all the research and stuff and told my advisors and stuff, I know what classes I want to take this semester. And I think it made it easier for them to sign off on it and realize, okay, you know, she doesn't want to do pre-nursing anymore, kind of a thing.
Oh, wow. How did your parents react to that change?
Well, my dad was really excited about it because he's a news producer in the San Francisco Bay Area. And my mom was encouraging of it too because, yeah, they both knew that I was like, you know, struggling in all those classes, even though I was studying all the time. But they knew too that I was just more of a fit for journalism. And I'd always been interested in it. And growing up, I would always, you know, get excited about watching the 10 o'clock news and things like that. Because I felt like it was always something I needed to watch. And I just remember always, like, knowing about, like, current events and things like that. And some of my teachers wouldn't know about some of the current events that I knew about. So
then growing up with your dad being in the news industry already,
yeah.
how was that experience? And would you say that played a big role in what you ultimately wanted to do, which was be news?
What do you mean, like be in the broadcasting industry?
Yeah, because you know, some people they don't. Well, I would say like maybe for the majority of people that I know, they don't have parents working in the news industry. So there's not that background that they have. For me, in my case, you know, my mom in particular, but both of my parents were just like, well, that's kind of out of left field. That's not a really, you know, traditional career, if you will. But for me, I had influences because my parents actually watch news all the time. So I started picking up on that. And of course, like I just kind of fell in love with it. So in your case, knowing that you have a dad working in the news world,
right?
How was that upbringing for you? How was, you know, did he take you to work? What was that upbringing for you like?
So I wouldn't usually go to work with my dad because he would do like the graveyard shift. And he was one of the like first producers on the morning KTVU show. And so I wouldn't go to work with him. But one time I did, actually, when I was like in 5th grade, I did this whole report about the news business and what it's like at a TV station. I interviewed like some of the anchors that he worked with. And for some reason, I don't know why I did that as my school report. Because like I said, like I always thought I was going to be in the medical field. But I think because of my upbringing, like we were always talking about current events and kind of like your household. Like my parents were always watching the news. So whenever we would have dinner and everything, we'd just be talking about like what's going on in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then when did you get your first job in news?
So I got my first job in news as a production assistant at KCBS Radio, which is funny because my dad actually works there too. So, but we would never like work the same shift. We'd always be working different shifts. But there were maybe like 2 times in like the 2.5 years I was a PA there that we worked together. But PAs there do a lot. Like they edit reporters' scripts and put audio files into the rundown. So it's a pretty intensive PA experience.
So wait a minute. So you were working with your dad. You two were working in the same building at the same time?
We were working at the same station, but we would just work different shifts all the time. So we would only cross paths like maybe twice in the 2.5 years I was there.
Wow. How's that experience of going to work knowing that your dad also worked there?
It was interesting. Yeah, it's definitely different because you know them in a different setting. So it's just, and it's interesting now too, because like now that I'm in the work field, like I'll meet people who know my dad or have worked with him. So yeah, it's just it's interesting because you see how they act professionally, and then you see them how they act like with their family.
So let me ask you this actually, because uh, again, this is very to me at least, it's a very unique experience because you had a parent already working in news. In Claire's case, in my case, we didn't have that. We didn't have a parent working in the same field as us.
Yeah.
So did you feel at any time that because your dad's daughter, that's well known in the news world, that you had big shoes to fill?
I did. I definitely did because actually when I was a PA at KCBS, I was also PA at NBC Bay Area. And he worked there for a short time. So there were people there who knew him. And there were a lot of people who would say, like, what a great producer he was and stuff like that. And, I was just a PA rolling the teleprompter. So, yeah, I didn't really feel like people felt that highly of me because
man.
Yeah.
Oh, but when did all that start turning around for you? Because now obviously you're a producer, a news producer. That entails a whole different set of, duties and responsibilities. So how did you end up going from PA to a role of producer? Yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up getting hired at Cron, like right after I quit my job at NBC, and then I started working there as a writer and doing the assignment desk and a web producer as well. So I did like all that stuff. But when I was there, like on the weekends, like morning weekends, I would say, I started getting into producing. And some of the producers taught me there, like, of all the things you should know as a producer. And that's kind of how I got into producing. And I realized, like, oh, I really like this. And, I was able to use my organizational skills, like planning things out and also keeping up with current events. So all things I like. And I was kind of doing it behind the scenes. Like, management didn't really know I was doing it until I told them, like, oh yeah, I'm, producing on the morning weekends, kind of a thing. And then that kind of brought me over to KUIT because I heard that they were looking for a full-time producer. So I thought, might as well try and, do what I want to do. And
actually,
yeah.
that's a good segue into my next question, because I'm curious. You don't have any family members that live in the Santa Barbara area, and you're still very young. So you go from the Bay Area, where you're very familiar with, to all of a sudden Santa Barbara. So how was that like, and what actually, like, why would you make a choice like that? I mean, you are probably one of the bravest people that I know for doing that, because I don't know if I would. I don't know. But what was your way of thinking to go from the Bay Area, where you know everybody, to all of a sudden a place that you don't really know anybody?
Right. That's a really good question. So I actually wanted to stay in the Bay Area because that's where, like, everyone, like, my whole family is all in the Bay Area. But I realized, like, with the job in Santa Barbara, it was a really good opportunity for me to, like, hone my skills. And I felt like if I just stayed in the Bay Area, I wouldn't get, like, I think we've talked about this before, about how, like, if you're in a small market, you learn a lot more things, I think, than those who are in, like, a big market. They don't get that same exposure, and they don't have to do as many tasks as when you're in a small market. So I was just working part-time in the Bay Area. Like, my position was considered part-time, and the position at KUIT was full-time. So I just thought all of that made sense to me. And even though I was like really afraid because I knew no one when I moved to Santa Barbara, I thought, I'm going to really learn, and it's a good opportunity for me, and it's in a good news town. Like, we had the Refugio oil spill, and then the day I started there, we had the Thomas Fire. And then a month after that, we had the mudslide. So, I mean, it's a small community, but there's a lot of big news that happens there.
Yeah, true. I mean, you stay there long enough, and eventually something big is going to happen that's going to test your skills and your ability as a newsmaker.
Right.
And certainly that was the case for you, because you actually lived through, I think, two huge events in the Santa Barbara community: the Thomas Fire and then the subsequent mudslides after that.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about that experience, actually, because literally, I think it was the first day that you started at KYT when the Thomas Fire broke. So how was that experience? Because I don't know if anybody had time to train you, because everybody had to be hands on dealing with all the other stuff. So how was that for you, that experience?
So the Thomas Fire was a scary experience, just because where I lived in Santa Barbara, I was under voluntary evacuation, and so I wasn't sure if I was going to even turn into mandatory, but luckily the fire died down, so I didn't have to evacuate. But it was interesting because everyone was just kind of running back and forth, and we were on the clock 24/7 working the Thomas Fire. And so no one really did have time to train me that much, so I just tried to help out wherever I could during that time, because I knew it was a pretty scary story and just a scary situation with everyone running for their lives.
Did you at any point reach out to your dad to ask him for advice on what you should do in this instance, where you knew you had to do something to jump in and help, but maybe you didn't have necessarily the direction that you would have if you would have started under normal circumstances? So
Right.
Did you ever reach out to your dad and ask for advice on this?
I probably should have, but I didn't. I just didn't think of it at the time. But I think it's because it was one of those stories that it impacted your livelihood as well as your viewers' livelihood. So I guess I was just more occupied with trying to figure out, should I evacuate, should I not? I just moved here. I think I moved there 2 days before the fire, too. And I remember my roommate, she actually left when this fire started getting bad and started spreading to Santa Barbara County. So I was kind of oh my God, kind of scared.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't really think of that at the time, but I probably should have.
So now you have two things going on. Now you have, you're in a very unique spot, I think. And I share the same spot with you because I also evacuated from my home, because I was living in the, it's called the Santa Barbara East Side, or Santa Barbara East Side, and it's right next to Montecito, where the fire was just getting close and it was getting bad. And so I evacuated, but at the same time, I had a job to do to inform the community. And you were, I think, in the same spot. Now you're being impacted directly because of the fire, and you don't know whether you should evacuate. So you're dealing with that. And then on the other hand, you're dealing with showing up to work and helping out, keeping the community informed. How did you marry these two things? Or did you ever marry these two things? How did you just make that work?
That's a really good question. So I figured if I did have to evacuate, that I could probably just stay at the station and just try to help out as much as I could. So if I ever married the two together about evacuate, well, basically what made me stay was because I knew I had a job to do and I had to help the community. And even to this day, people that I tell I work at KYT, they're oh my gosh, you helped me through the Thomas fire. Your station is amazing. And so I felt good the fact that, like, personally, I was impacted by the fire, but I was able to help my community at the same time. So I think that was another thing coming through my mind too, was the fact that, like, I can help people through this really scary time. And yeah, I think that was it.
Wow. So how did that make you feel to have people come up to you and tell you that you helped them out and just kind of give you the pat on the shoulder and tell you did a great job? How was that like? How does that make you feel?
Good. Well, it made me feel good, especially because, like, 2 months before I moved to Santa Barbara, we had the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa. And the thing is, I didn't really feel as impacted by it, but I think it's because I lived like an hour away. But it made me feel good because I live in the community. So it made me feel good that I was able to help people that are in my community get through a really hard time. And then it also made me realize the power of the news business. Like, journalists, a lot of times, like, they don't get recognized for their work, and, like, they're kind of seen as underpaid, that kind of thing. But it makes your work worthwhile. And I think that's the big thing about journalism, is just helping people and getting the right information out.
So when people, bring up this whole like fake news, oh, you're doing fake news, this and that, fake news. How does that make you feel?
Well, that's like probably the main rhetoric that's been going on right now. I think they're wrong, because I always think people are going to need news. And it just depends, like, where you get it from. Like, or your former station, KUIT, like, it's a good station to bring out the best local coverage, because we're getting them straight from officials. And so it just depends, like, where you get the information from, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Claire, what do you have any questions? You have that face like you want to ask something.
I do. I'm curious if you could talk to people who might be listening to this podcast, knowing that we're talking to a TV news producer, just about other jobs behind the camera at a TV news station, and what's your advice to someone who's maybe deciding between going into on TV or behind the camera job in a TV newsroom?
That's a good question. So I think the thing is, a lot of times, I think we've talked about this too, that, like, when you first watch a newscast, like, you really, like, want to be on the air if you're interested in being in the broadcast industry. But there's so many jobs that are behind the scenes. Like you've done the assignment desk, you were the web director, and you're both in LA now, so you're the best in your field, obviously.
Thank you.
Claire's blushing right now.
Yeah, so I think people, like, don't realize, like, all the hard work of the people behind the scenes. So my advice to those people that, like, want to know about a news station and are interested in being in the industry, like, try to shadow someone that you think is a very successful person in the broadcast industry. Like, you may know someone who's behind the scenes, but you don't really know what they do. Like, I feel like a lot of my family members, they'll ask me, like, so what exactly does a producer do? Mm-hmm. So I have to explain to them, well, you watch a newscast, right? And they say yes. And then I say, well, the way things are organized in a newscast, like the order of the stories, the structure, that's what I do. And then they're like, wow, that must be a lot of work. And I say, yeah.
And make sure that you see the next show on time.
Yeah,
on the network.
keeping the timing. And yeah, that's a big part too. So, yeah, so that's my advice. If you think someone's successful and they seem to enjoy their job in the broadcast industry, but they're behind the scenes, shadow them. If you really think the on-air thing is for you, shadow that person. See what it's like doing that.
Did you ever want to be on air?
I did, yeah. I actually, yeah.
Did you ever, take a jab at it? Or did you just go straight into like a behind-the-scenes job?
So I actually, when I first graduated from college, I made a reel. And I was an intern at a TV station in Chico, and that's how I was able to make the reel. And then I applied to some reporter jobs, but they didn't really work out. So that's kind of how I ended up doing it on behind-the-scenes job. But then I realized, like, from doing that behind-the-scenes job, I really liked it a lot better. Mm-hmm. And, like, I liked what the producers did a lot more, just from that experience. So that's why I think if I had, like, paid more attention to what the behind the scenes people did, I probably would have been more towards the path of being a producer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So does your dad give you any tips? Has he given you any advice at all when you started heading into the producer role that you can share with us?
I mean, I've asked him for advice on things like breaking news stories. Like when we had the Borderline shooting, that was a big one. So I asked him for advice on, like, what do you do in breaking news situations like that, where you're just, all this stuff is happening. And it's basically, he just said, like, you have to keep on your toes and just keep going to whatever is going on. And that's kind of what I experienced when we did the mudslide, too. It was like the same breaking news situation, because we were supposed to be on the air at like 5 a.m. And Ron, our former EP, was saying, okay, we got to get on at 4:20. Because we were hearing about all this stuff that was going on the scanners, like around 3:45 or so. So that's when we knew things were really crazy. And we had 3 reporters that day who were in different areas of Montecito. And our assignment desk, like, had to keep coordinating them and moving them to different places throughout that day. So I kind of experienced that because he was telling me to go here and go there. And I'd only been there for like a month.
Yeah, that's right.
So when the mudslide happened. So I learned from that too about what you should do in breaking news situations. And so that's kind of why I wanted to know, like, how I can improve, because those, I think, are like the most stressful kinds of situations.
And maybe you can answer this bit for me, because I never studied journalism in school. My field was more into the news photography area. Well, I was a former news photographer, but I had studied film production, and so that was my interest, my passion. So I don't have a formal education, you would say, in taking a journalism class in college. Right. But I've always assumed that, for unique careers like the ones that we all have here in this little studio, the best education is probably the hands-on experience that you get when you actually start working. But my question is actually, how different was it from what you learned in class versus real life practice?
That's a good question. So the concepts of journalism that I learned helped me when it came to like news judgment and like, for example, if we hear about the mission being vandalized, because that actually happened too.
This is the Santa Barbara mission,
The Santa
the
Bar-
old Santa Barbara mission for everybody listening.
Yeah. Thank you. So we heard reports of that happening, but we didn't really have proof. So we were able to get to police to confirm it, but I didn't want to report it until we had like actual proof and we had photos too. So those are things like that, just like confirming things with officials. Those are like journalism principles that helped me like with my job and stuff. But since I didn't major in broadcasting, I think it kind of didn't help me as much when I got there because I didn't really understand like the behind the scene kind of jobs. So I actually ended up taking like a community college class that specified in broadcasting, and it helped me learn a lot about how to improve my writing, because that's the other thing I kind of struggled with too, was I was used to writing for newspapers in like the inverted pyramid style, and I wasn't used to writing in broadcast. And that's like a big thing they teach at broadcasting schools. And so I kind of had to learn that during like my PA jobs, and I just really, really studied hard trying to make sure I wrote the way I spoke.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Claire, did you have the same? Because I know you went to Biola University, and you were majoring in broadcast too.
Mm-hmm.
So was that a similar experience that you had, where you had to learn on the job essentially how to write better or how to do things better?
Yeah, a lot of my schooling was learning like what a package and VOSAT is, and learning how to write for newspaper, online, TV, and how to develop stories and ethics in journalism, and all that was great education. But you can get taught it all until you're blue in the face, but you need to actually go into a newsroom and do it. And then I think you learn the most.
I agree.
Once you like do an internship and then maybe your first job, you learn so much, way more out of the classroom than in, for sure, for me.
Mm-hmm. And as a producer, news producer, have you ever had, I don't know, like a new role that you probably didn't learn in school, especially now the way that things are heading? For example, there's a lot more digital elements that go into a news station than ever before. So do you find yourself that now you're taking on a more unique approach to your position that maybe I don't know, they may or may not be teaching this in colleges now, but like I said, like with the big digital component, are you doing any of that digital work as well?
Yes. So actually where I went to college, they required me to have a Twitter handle. Like, and this was like in 2012 when I started one of my journalism classes. Like, we had to start a Twitter account, and whenever we would hear about news happening in the community, or if we went to a city council meeting where like a big decision was made on something, we would have to tweet about it. So they did incorporate that whole digital first aspect. And then when I was at Cron, I did web there. And I started thinking more about the whole web aspect and how it reaches all these people. Because before I don't know why, but I didn't really think about it. And it helped me realize, like, most people get their news online now. Mm-hmm. So I was able to see, like, the newscast and, like, our own web stories as part of our product. And at KUIT, I try to help out as much as I can, like with the web content. But luckily, we have our digital director there during the day. So he'll post stories. But when I first started at KUIT, I was doing the morning show. So I would have to, push stuff out and make sure information got to people. Basically, that's what I meant when I said push stuff out, to clarify. And also, like, in the situation with the Thomas Fire and the mudslide, we looked at all this and we realized most people were watching us online. And, like, a lot of people vacation to Santa Barbara or they have houses in Santa Barbara and they just wanted to know what was going on. So a lot of them watched it, like, from other places that are not in Santa Barbara. And, yeah, so the whole web aspect made me realize, like, how important our news is to not just the Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, Ventura County, but it's important to everyone about what's going on. So incorporating digital is a really important part for producers to know.
And do you still have that same Twitter account that you created in 2012?
I actually do. It's the same one that I made in 2012.
And you're currently using that one still, right? It's not like you create a different account. You're still using the
I'm still
original.
using it, yeah. So you can still follow me.
What's your Twitter handle?
At Miss MS Allison Weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully you get some followers, more followers out of this episode. I've seen it, and it's really interesting. How do you feel, with this whole cyberbullying stuff going on now? How do you feel that posting online has changed for you? Because I know some people might just be using it purely for news. Other people are a little afraid to put any type of personal stuff because, cyber bullies might come, these trolls, and just kind of make, life a living hell online. Has this sense of these trolls out there kind of, I guess, hindered certain things that you post online? Or are you not worried? Is that not a worry to you at this point?
I'm not really concerned about it because I usually think about things before I post. But I have noticed, like, for some reason, people are more comfortable behind a screen than they are, like, saying it to your face, kind of a thing. So, the cyberbullying thing is really sad because we've seen a lot of devastating things come from that. But I think people just need to, think more about would you say this in person to someone, and not behind if you were having a face-to-face interaction with someone, would you say that? And I think that's part of the problem. It's just people are just too comfortable behind the screen. Yeah.
Well, have you ever gotten a troll before?
I have, yeah.
And how have you dealt with that situation?
So, I just realized that, like, trolls don't really have anything better to do than just troll. Because you're trying to make a difference in your community. So you can't concentrate on the negative things. You have to concentrate on, okay, well, I know that I'm doing something positive. And this person obviously has nothing else going on.
Yeah, that's well said. Because I think if you're confident with what you do, and you know that you're doing a good job, then you shouldn't worry about people like that. In many cases, again, with this whole atmosphere that's being created, where the press all of a sudden is now, the enemy of the people, if you will. to quote certain individuals. It creates more, I think, more trolling online. But I guess it's in the way that you deal with it too. And like you said, you can't really pay too much attention to these trolls because that's what they want. They feed off that. There's actually do you watch South Park at all?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, there's one episode that I came across, and it's actually about trolling. And I can't really remember what happens in it too well, but it was really funny in the way they went about doing that, because they showed all these trolls that it was just people that were just living in their mom's house in their basement and not having, like you said, anything better to do, and it was so funny the way they portray these trolls. And I think in that episode there might be like 2 or 3, but I think they ended up trolling the trolls. So it was just funny. But I can't remember exactly what happened in it. I would have to look at the episode. But there is an episode just recently. I think maybe a season ago it was.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. Because that's very similar to what we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, do you watch any cartoons still?
No, I don't. Not anymore.
What kind of programming do you watch? Or is it just news all the time? Like, what shows are you into right now?
I don't really watch news all the time. I mean, I do. Like, I am kind of addicted. So I do watch 60 Minutes. And I'm on the Game of Thrones bandwagon. Like
Wait
everyone
a
else.
minute now. Have you started watching the new season of Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Oh, man. Okay, I haven't yet. No spoilers.
Okay.
I'm
All
waiting.
right,
I'm waiting for like the 4th episode, because there's only 6 episodes in this final season. So I'm waiting for the 4th episode. I think each episode is about an hour long. So
They're really long.
yeah.
But they're good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, they're so good that I have to binge watch. So, I'm waiting for episode 4 so that I can start watching and binge watch. And so by the time it gets to the episode 6, I've already would have been like right there. But why did you start watching Game of Thrones? What was so appealing to you about it?
I think it's because I heard from so many people how good of a show it was.
Uh-huh.
So I think a few years ago, I thought, okay, I have an HBO account. Might as well try to watch Game of Thrones. And then I ended up getting addicted. Like, it takes a while to get into. It's one of those shows, like, the first season kind of drags a little bit, but then, like, the season finale of the first season, it was just jaw-dropping what happened, because you were not expecting it. So I think that's kind of the appeal of Game of Thrones, is the fact that, you don't expect certain things to happen. And I kind of think that's what's going to happen with the end of the series. Probably something like no one expects to happen.
Which character do you identify with the most?
What character do I identify with?
In Game of Thrones, yeah.
Well, I like Jon Snow. But I think it's because he tries to keep peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what I try to do, like, with my job and stuff too, is try to keep peace. So I kind of relate to that.
Wow. Maybe for me, I would say the White Walkers. No, not the White Walkers.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Oh, Claire. I told her, I've tell her you gotta watch the show, but what show are you into besides 90 Day Fiance?
I really like Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the one show I will watch live. Everything else I can just do my life and wait to see on Hulu or Netflix or whatever. But I love watching Grey's Anatomy when it airs.
Oh, man. Well, do you have cable, Allison?
I do have cable, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I have basic cable, so I don't have everything.
You haven't cut the cord completely.
No, I haven't. Well, it's just because, like, I just like watching news all the time. Well, most of the time. So, so that's why I got cable. And just so I can know what's going on around me.
Oh man, that's good. Well, that's a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And I can watch CNN, so I like CNN.
oh, there you go. There you go. Is there anybody in the news industry, either on air or off air, that you want to emulate? That is like your big. Oh, I want to be like that person too. I want to do what they do, kind of thing.
Well, I like Nora O'Donnell, but she's on CBS this morning. But yeah. I also like Anderson Cooper. Like, he does really good pieces. Just like the way he writes his stories and everything. He's a really good writer.
Do you think you would ever do any side projects that involve maybe creating either like a news show or some kind of news-oriented production, like a YouTube channel? You know, some people they have a YouTube channel where they talk about news and news events. Others have a podcast. In fact, Claire and I tried to do one before news. It didn't really quite work out because it was just too much work. Yeah, I mean, do you think you'll ever do any like side projects that involve video creation?
I'm not quite sure. Maybe someday, like, if there's a project that, I think would be worthwhile to do, but I haven't had any, like, spectacular ideas that I think people would be appealed to.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any hobbies?
I do have hobbies. I sing in the Santa Barbara Mission Choir.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about burying the lead. Tell me about that experience.
It's been fun. It's actually like really professional. So I tried out actually when I was still on the morning show, but I found out I was going to go to the evening Fox show. And they told me, oh, well, we practice on Thursday nights. And I wouldn't have been able to do that because I'd be producing the show. So that's kind of why I didn't join at that time. But then, like, in March, my schedule changed to the dayside shift that I'm on now. And so they asked me if I would, or I asked them, sorry, if they were looking for more singers still. And they said, yeah, we are. And, like, we remember you auditioning, kind of a thing. And they asked me if I was still interested in being a part of it. And I said, yeah, I am. So I've been doing that for about almost 2 months because we're almost in May.
Wow.
So
what song did you audition with?
I don't remember because I used to do singing and musical theater and stuff when I was younger a lot. And then I just decided to get back into it just because I was just worried I was going to lose my singing voice for some reason.
Wow.
So.
Jeez, Allison, we never knew you'd sang.
Well, that's because I didn't really tell anyone until, like, recently. I kind of kept it a secret.
What's your go-to song? Like, what's your favorite song to sing to?
What's my favorite song to sing to? Well, I like really high-pitched songs. Like, I like when there's like karaoke, like I pick Michael Jackson songs, even though that's kind of controversial right now. But they're high pitched and everyone likes them, so they're a crowd pleaser. But a lot of times I like songs from musicals to sing for auditions. So I think that's probably what I auditioned with. Like, I like songs from like The Music Man and
how does that one go?
Singing in the Rain.
How does The Music Man go? How does that one go?
Oh, that's putting me on the spot.
You don't have to do it.
Okay.
I just didn't know how to do it. I know the Singing in the Rain one. Is that the same one? Like, I'm singing in the rain.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's a specific song in The Music Man that's called The Music Man, but there's like Till There Was You. That's a really well-known one.
How does that one go?
No, it's okay.
Now,
Yeah.
are you were you a very shy kid when you?
Oh, I was really shy. Yeah. So I was a really shy kid, but it's weird because whenever I would perform in front of people when I was really young, I would just like all of a sudden it changed me. And so I kind of think that's why like my parents kind of pushed me into doing that, because they thought it would help me like get out of my shyness kind of a thing. And I think it kind of did. Because like it helped me gain more confidence and stuff like that. And especially like doing voice lessons and stuff. I did that for like 5 years. So that helped me too. And I think just knowing a skill kind of helps you gain confidence, or gaining more skills help you gain confidence as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so on a scale from 1 to 10, how shy would you say you are now compared to growing up?
To compared when I was growing up? Maybe like, so 10 would be like I improved like so much, and then
Yeah.
0 would be no, not at all. Okay.
Yes.
I would probably say like an 8 or a 7.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of times I would just not talk.
Oh, really?
Well, people would say that to me. People would be like, "Why don't you talk?"
Oh man, really?
Yeah,
That sounds
but
so
those were the
familiar.
mean ones. Yeah.
Oh. It's like they would actually get in your face and tell you, "Hey, why are you not talking? Can you talk?" Or would they do like a side comment to
But
your dad?
I was just really shy. So and like I was just kind of shocked at the people that did say that to me. I'm just like,
Were
well,
these usually grown-ups?
no.
They were kids your age?
Yes.
Oh man.
And one of them was in CCD class, which is like supposed to be a holy place, right?
Oh man. Oh. So then would you say the singing got you out of that, like shy state, or doing news got you out of that, or just improved on it?
Probably when I got into college, just because, probably news, because that's when I got into news. So that I think helped me too, because I would have to reach out to people and call them, and was something like out of my comfort zone, because I was a reporter on the school newspaper. So I would have to call people I didn't know and ask them for information. And like a lot of times I would have to just randomly go up to, students and ask them things about what's going on. And at first people were like not that nice, because they knew I was really shy and like, afraid to like do that. So like when I first started on the school newspaper, there's actually someone who complained about me.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What did they say?
Yeah. I think they said something that like I was just really awkward, and it kind of made me not want to do news, because that was like my first experience of like going up to someone and, asking. And it was about recruitment for sororities and fraternities, and I just went up to the person, and it just didn't make me feel good, the fact that like they went to someone and it was my first time, and I was just so nervous. But I realized like, I shouldn't let that kind of thing let me down. If I want to learn something, you shouldn't, kind of like the trolls thing, you shouldn't let the bad people keep you down.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really got to get out. And I'm talking to you in general.
Yeah.
Out of that, a certain state in life that would normally, I guess, people might perceive as awkward, but I think in reality people are just shy. And I think there's more shy people out there than people realize.
Yeah,
I was
I think
one
so
of them.
too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were shy?
Yes.
I wouldn't guess that. Oh my gosh.
Well, I think.
So Claire knows this too.
Yeah, Claire's just nodding her head. But yeah, no,
We are
it's,
very opposite.
yeah.
Oh, so you were always outgoing. Okay.
Yeah, but I think it took somebody like Claire and also my career to get me out of that funk. I mean, there was, and I always tell this example because this was probably the most extreme example that I can remember vividly, and that was when I was a kid. I think I was like maybe, I don't know, like 12 years old. So my dad and myself and the rest of the family were going to vacation in Mexico, but the car broke down in Phoenix. So we ended up staying.
No.
Yeah, we ended up staying like a couple nights there to, until the car got fixed. But my dad and I went to I want to say maybe a Foster's Freeze. I can't remember, but we went to this restaurant for a burger, and there was this lady that I thought was just good looking. And, being 12 years old, around that age of puberty, I guess, I froze up. And being shy, too, I just kind of froze up and I couldn't eat anything. I got paralyzed because I was so self-conscious. And then...
Yeah, I was too.
Mm-hmm. And so we ended up leaving. My dad would ask me, well, what's wrong? I couldn't answer. But I don't know. He probably figured it out. But anyway, we ended up leaving. And so that was that. And then when I started working in news, one of the things I never really wanted to do was talk to people and approach them.
That's how that's how I was too.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, can't I? Because as part of my job, and this is actually in the small markets, you see this a lot of where the photographer is all of a sudden a photojournalist. You go out by yourself. And you have to come up with a story. So usually I really like the aspect of being a news photographer because you got to play with the camera. Like that was the big thing. So I love playing with the camera and I love creating things. But then the other thing I didn't realize was that you have to go up to people and you have to ask them for questions, sometimes uncomfortable questions.
Yeah.
And so that really knocked me out of that shy phase. So I would say like up to that point actually, and I still was shy, but as the years passed, that shyness
It
just
takes
kind of
a while.
Yeah, exactly. And then it got me out of that, and I'm still shy to a degree for certain things, but not as before. Like I don't get paralyzed like before.
Yeah, I used to be paralyzed.
Yeah. No, it's bad. It's especially a bad experience if you get into this. Well, I don't want to call them incidents, but like maybe an experience or an event that happens where, you just completely freeze up. There's no worse feeling in the world than.
Yeah.
But now I just it's a lot easier for me to deal with that because everything I do has. Well, for the majority of the stuff I do, it's all public. Like this podcast, for example, it's a labor of love, and whether people like it or not, which I mean, so far I've gotten really positive feedback from friends and family and the community and overall. But if I went into this knowing that there's gonna be what was that? Whoa.
Well, I was trying to... You mentioned, like, the reviews and stuff, so I was going to go and see if there were any more reviews, and it just started playing the thing.
Oh.
I thought you were going to update your Facebook status or something.
No, I'm...
like doing a Hangry Mexican podcast.
There you go. But I went into this knowingly or being fully aware that along the road I was going to get trolled or somebody was going to have a negative review, but
you can't let that stuff let you down. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as long as you're doing something that you love, that you truly love, then nothing can come in between that, I think.
So it says there's 4 ratings, 5 out of 5 stars.
Whoa!
Well, I
Hangry
was
Mexican
one of the
podcast.
ratings. I rated it.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Wow. I love it.
So one of the 4 ratings have been exposed.
Yeah, well, and me.
Okay,
Two.
2.
Oh man.
Have you rated your own podcast, Oscar?
Yeah, I think I give it 1 star.
Oh, no.
But No, actually, just recently. Well, by the time this episode airs, we would have been on Stitcher for a while, but just about a week and a half ago, I got approved to be on Stitcher. So now
What's Stitcher?
Stitcher is like a service that hosts, or not really hosts, but showcases podcasts. So it's a popular app. It's like having Spotify or Apple Podcast. Or Google Music, which we're this podcast is there on those platforms as well. But yeah, it's just a platform that features all these podcasts, and it's like an up and coming. I think it has a really good following. This Stitcher, and I'm glad that I got on it, because the more people listen to the podcast, maybe they'll get something out of it. Because the idea of this podcast is that we interview somebody that can offer a unique perspective on things. So
Well, I hope I offered a unique perspective.
yeah, well, I think you did. I mean, you are one of those folks that I would say the most unique aspect is that you work in news, but you had a parent working in news. So you were exposed to that at a very early age.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, we just had the experience of having our parents watching the news while they were doing cooking or doing other things. And then just having that experience of growing up with news, but you actually had somebody that works there. On top of that, you're probably like, well, I can't remember the last time that I knew somebody that in just a very short period of time has gone through so many shift changes at work. Because you did the overnight shift, right?
Yeah, I did that for like a year. And then around Thanksgiving, I did, what was it? The Fox 10 p.m. show. And I did that for like maybe 4 months, 3 or 4 months. And now I'm in March, I started doing the 5 and 6 p.m. shows. So now I'm doing prime time, as I guess John Palminteri would say.
So out of all the shifts, which one has been your, I wouldn't say favorite, although like just maybe the most enjoyable shift?
The most enjoyable shift. I would have to say the morning show was really fun, just because like the people I worked with, it was pretty relaxed environment. Although we had a lot of major news when I was like doing that morning shift, because we had the mudslide and we had the borderline shooting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that
then-
happened pretty early on in the morning.
Yeah. And we ended up sending our morning anchor to that, because at first we heard that there were like 6 people shot, and then we found out like 12 people were dead after a 3 a.m. press conference. So that was scary. I mean, I do like the day side shift just because there's more people around, and but it's definitely more hectic because more news happens just because it's day side for some reason. Like yesterday we had someone die at the Oceano Dunes in a deadly ATV accident, which is really strange because that actually happened a week before to a San Jose woman. So, so it's, I mean, I feel like with every shift you work, there's pros and cons to each shift.
Claire, do you have any other questions before we end the podcast?
Well, I'm curious about Allison's cooking.
Oh,
I want to know, do you like cooking? What's your favorite dish?
I do like cooking. I don't do it enough though, but I love cooking and I love food. Well, this is the Hangry Mexican podcast, so I didn't talk as much about food. I just mainly talked about my career and stuff. So I like cooking chicken. I also like anything with cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Isn't there a
Yeah.
recipe that has like stuffed chicken, like cheese stuffed chicken?
Oh, then I need to make that.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I've seen it somewhere.
I think there is.
Maybe Pioneer
yeah.
Woman. I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, Claire's obsessed with Pioneer Woman.
Yeah, Claire is actually the one who told me about Pioneer Woman. I'd never heard of it.
Oh, there you go. I don't
Yeah.
know 1 inch about Pioneer Woman. What, Claire? What? Spill it out.
Something to say.
Pretty sure you're the one that turns on the Food Network channel to see if Pioneer Woman is on.
All
TV.
right. And
So-
there it is. It comes out. The truth comes out. All right.
Well, I mean,
She has a pretty cool show, I gotta say. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then
Yeah.
I'll have to watch it.
her recipes are great.
Yeah, because
Too.
I just get them online. Yeah.
Yep.
So, what's your favorite go-to dish then that you can make with your eyes closed?
Go-to dish that I can make with my eyes closed. That's a tough one too. I'd probably have to say like I have this apple chicken thing that I can make with my eyes closed and with sherry and onions and stuff like that. Because I made it so many times. Yeah.
Oh man.
Sounds great.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Do you sing while you're making?
No. I do sing in the shower though. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to make that chicken apple for us one day.
Yes,
Sounds
yeah, I'll have
good.
to, yeah.
Oh man, do you grill too?
No, I don't. I don't have a grill, so I don't really I don't grill. But I know you grill and you make pretty good stuff on the grill.
Yeah, I even created a YouTube channel on it, which I haven't uploaded anything to in a long time. But it was a crazy time. I think maybe Thanksgiving was the last time I uploaded something on that YouTube channel. It's called Oscar's Grill Bites.
Check it out.
Yeah, well, I find myself, okay, so after all these months of not grilling because of new jobs and then moving, to different locations, kind of
Yeah.
settling in, doing all
Yeah.
that, these big life changes kind of took away my time of grilling. Plus, we live so close to the collection here that
You can just walk to the
yeah.
food.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And, we take lunch to work during the week, but we treat ourselves to the weekend when we do have time to go out and just, eat out. It's the whole experience thing. But that means that I spend less time grilling. So I'm trying to get back into that. But I got to say, like, if there's certain things that I have kind of forgotten and kind of gotten back into, of course, in the grilling world, that if when I didn't remember something, I would go back to my videos and then I would look at how I did it. Because with grilling, it's timing and it's doing certain things to make the food come out just right. But you kind of lose those techniques if you don't do it for months and months and months. And so with my videos, I'm glad I did those videos just because they serve as a journal or a diary, a how-to guide, not just for myself, of course, but for everybody else that's tuning into those videos and watching them. But they have helped me a lot in recovering some of those grilling techniques that I was so used to and spoiled to in Santa Barbara. But yeah, grilling is fun. I'm trying to get Claire into it a lot more, but yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
So you're more into cooking, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
compared to the grilling. Yeah.
I like kitchen cooking and
Oh,
baking.
Well,
yeah.
tell Allison what you did yesterday as far as dessert goes. This is crazy.
I want to
know.
hear about this.
This is going to be maybe a go-to dessert dish for a while. It's in the crock pot slow cooker. And I got it from one of those Facebook videos. And you just, 3 ingredients, 2 cans of apple pie filling, and then a 1 bag of spice cake mix, just straight in the crock pot, and then 2 sticks of butter right in. And then it makes like an apple pie or apple crisp thing.
Ooh, that
Then
sounds really
with
good.
a scoop of vanilla bean ice cream on top. And it was so easy and it was good and had that great cinnamon like crunch to it a little bit.
Yeah, I like making things in the crock pot too.
Yeah.
Because that's so easy. You can just put a bunch of stuff in and then it cooks like the whole day, and then when you get home from work or whatever, it's done. You don't have to cook
Yeah, exactly. And you can make enough for the
days.
whole week. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's awesome.
Great.
Yeah, I gotta learn a recipe on that too, because I'd love to do a crock pot recipe one day.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Lots
Yeah,
to choose from.
yeah. You just have to go and spend time buying the ingredients.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, just go to Target across the street.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, Allison, thanks for being here on this podcast. I like to end the podcast usually with my guests' pet peeves. So, do you have any pet peeves?
I think I do, but I just can't think of them at the moment.
All right, let's go to Claire. I'll give you a quick moment. Claire, what's your pet peeve?
I'm thinking of some right now too, because I shared one already in a previous podcast. Do you just say it again, or?
Well, I mean, you can see it again, or if you remember one later. Too. I mean, it's fine.
Let's see. I guess the one I shared yesterday was just about like when people they see you and they say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" and they just keep walking. And like they don't really give you time to answer. It's like if you just ask me that "Hi, how are you?" question, like, don't you want to hear what I have to say, and not just keep walking? So that was just one of them.
Yeah. For me, I have several ones, but I would say I didn't know this actually until I was listening to this podcast on the drive home. There was this person he kept saying, "Know what I mean?" after every sentence. Know what I mean? So it annoyed me. It annoyed me so much. So I would say people that say this, know what I mean after every single sentence they say. Know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, cool. You know what I mean, Alan? You know what I mean?
No, I don't. Yeah, I can see how that can be annoying because, because I know people just say that like constantly, and
Yeah.
it's just not good.
Maybe once or twice in the conversation is fine. Know what I mean? Is there something people do that really annoy you?
Oh, I would have to say chewing gum really loudly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that would probably be my pet peeve. Just because, like, a lot of times, like, if you hear it and you're just, like, trying to concentrate and work, it doesn't work out a lot of times.
Oh, man. That's funny.
Or if people are, like, crunching on something really loud, or someone talking in the middle of a movie or something like that. Like, this actually happened to one of our coworkers. He was watching the Avengers Endgame, and there were two girls that were talking the entire movie behind him. And for me, I get annoyed by that because it's like, you paid to see this movie, and you don't pay for people to be in the back talking.
Do you think you would confront, like if that happened to you, would you confront the person and say, hey...
I would. Well, the funny thing is, like, I used to be really, really shy, and I would be afraid to confront people about things. But now I'm like, I can be confrontational within reason. Like, for that kind of thing, I would be like, I paid this much money. Can you stop talking?
I love it. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So that's so you would have to be doing something, and the other person would have to be disturbing that process.
Yeah.
For you to get annoyed.
Yeah. That's okay. So yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve.
All right. Good. We got somewhere. Woo! All right, Allison. Thanks for being on this podcast, this episode. And again, that was Allison Weeks. You can follow her on social media, on Twitter, at handle Miss Allison Weeks. And of course, I'll put that link down in the description of this episode, so be sure to check that out. And if you have any questions or comments, please send them to hangrymexicanpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to feature some of those comments and questions in the next episode. And if you love this podcast, if you like this episode, please tell your friends and family. Word of mouth is the best way for a lot of years to get on this podcast. And be sure to subscribe to wherever you subscribe for your podcasts. And don't miss another episode, of course. We've got some really interesting stuff coming up. But also, I would love for you to rate the episode. And again, you can find this podcast wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, good night and good luck.